What a contrast from 1 week ago. We were in Miami, Florida, basking in sunshine, temperatures in the 90s, and humidity around 70%. However, today we are hundreds of miles away in Syracuse, New York, where the temperature is in the mid-60s, and the threat of rain looms over Onondaga Lake in New York State. Hello, everybody. I'm Don Poyer. This is race number 2 of the 1985 Unlimited Hydroplane Racing Circuit. We have a major development from yesterday. During a qualifying run, the Miller American, driven by Chip Hanauer, suffered some damage in the engine, the turbine engine of this boat. A flywheel broke loose from the shaft. That turbine flywheel broke into pieces, turning virtually into shrapnel, badly damaging the engine, the cowling over the engine, and some of the chambers in the structural area of this boat. Chip Hanauer, the driver, was fine, but they will not be competing today. A blow to the circuit here in 1985. I talked with team owner and team manager Jim Lucero about the situation.
Next question is Detroit. Can you get back to Seattle, get some engines together, and get ready in time?
Yeah, we'll be in Detroit, ready to race. We expect the Miller American to be competitive at all the races, and we're disappointed that we're not running here, especially since we're sponsoring the race. But we'll have the boat together, and we'll have Chip in a good, safe, fast ride for Detroit.
On a positive note, Scott Pierce, driver of the Executone Telephones, got his first victory ever as an unlimited driver last week down in Miami. Jim Hendrick is down there with a very happy driver.
And that, Don, has to mean that this young man is eager to go back into battle. What do you think?
Well, we're a lot more confident this week. We were fortunate enough to win for Executone last week, and we think we're in good shape for this week, and we have an excellent chance of winning this race.
Actually, last week was history. Today's a new day.
Yes, that's true. And the Miss Budweiser's here and qualified, and the 7-Eleven has their big L11s, and so we're going to have our hands full of Executone, but we're up to the task.
And Don, speaking of being up to the task, Jim Cropfield is standing by, I understand, with you. This will be his first test of 1985.
Jim, that test being the fact that Jim Cropfield is not only driving the brand new Budweiser in competition for the first time, but you're underneath that glass. Are you adjusting to that, getting comfortable, Jim?
Oh yes, it's very comfortable. It's it's a different kind of feeling, but
yeah.
You know, it's like an astronaut. You're all strapped in and ready to go wherever you're going to go. But it makes you feel safer. Naturally, you are safer, but it gives you more confidence. You can do a better job of driving.
You're going to use two-way radios to kind of help find your way around the course today?
Well, today we don't have our radios, but we will have them in Detroit for that race, and
okay.
Something we really need, and we're going to get those.
All right, let's go on to Jim now, and he'll have the rundown for Heat 1A. Jim?
Okay, Don, all in all, 7 boats have qualified for this on Onondaga Lake. 4 will run in Heat 1A and 3 in Heat 1B. Checking 1A. First of all, oh boy, Alberto, we'll see action. Jerry Hopp, the driver, checked in at 108+ mile an hour in qualifying. Executone Telephones, last week's winner, Scott Pierce, qualifying speed 121.3. The 7-Eleven, driven by Steve Reynolds at 122.2. And the fastest qualifier in this group, Frank Kenney Toyota Volvo, driven by Leif Borgeson at 124.1. And now, Don, how about the rundown on Heat 1B?
All right, Jim, as you said, 7 boats qualified, 3 in Heat 1B. Let's take a look. First of all, Jim Saddam's U-22 with Todd Yarling aboard, qualifying at 109.689. The American Speedy Printing with the rookie Andy Coker, a second place in Miami last week, qualifying at 113.9. And the brand new Miss Budweiser with Jim Cropfield aboard, qualifying at 125.6 miles per hour. There's your rundown for Heat 1A and 1B on a cloudy day in Syracuse. We'll have Heat 1A for you in just a moment. Welcome back to Syracuse, New York on this gray, blustery somewhat day. I'm Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick. You see the 7-Eleven crew working on the turbine-powered boat. Leif Borgeson working his way down to the finger pier. Tough going, a lot of rocks to walk over. The safety gloves that each of the drivers will be wearing today, and the Executone Telephone crew watching Scott Pierce and their boat head out. And the Frank Kenney Toyota Volvo with Leif Borgeson and the Turbine Allison engines. Jerry Hopp is one of the drivers in the Oh Boy Alberto Beef Jerky, first time they've qualified in 1985. Scotty Pierce coming off that victory in Miami in 1985, and Executone Telephones, their first victory as a sponsorship. Steve Reynolds and the Miss 7-Eleven, a native out of Seattle, hoping to get his 3rd career victory. Leif Borgeson, also out of Seattle, Rookie of the Year back in 1969, a very popular driver. Coming out of that south turn, which can be a problem at times with wind and choppy water, are the boats, and they're all very early. You will see the starting line in a moment. On the way inside is the Boy Alberto with Jerry Hopp Executone telephones, and then the 7-Eleven with Steve Reynolds here, as you see. You saw the starting line and you heard the gun. A good start by everybody, especially the man on the right of your screen, Jerry Hopp in the Oboyo Berto Beef Jerky, qualifying at 108 miles per hour. He's in first place and holding on to lane number 1. Executone telephone second, and the 7-Eleven with Steve Reynolds in third place. Around the north turn, 7-Eleven has gone dead in the water down in the north turn. More problems for that turbine-powered boat. Reynolds waving that he's all right, but anyway, let's go back to the race. Oboyo Berto still in first place with Jerry Hopp. One of the slower qualifiers, but running very well. Executone telephones on the left of your screen. That's the Kenney Toyota Volvo on the right. Look out, the boat's going to flip. The Kenney Toyota Volvo has flipped going down the back chute. Leif Borgeson, the driver. It looks like the boat has landed right side up. Let's locate the driver. There he is on the left of the boat, Leif Borgeson. The race has been stopped. The flares have been shot. As you see the red flag, the boats will return immediately to the pits. The Executone telephone going back. Yes, the boat has landed right side up. The wing is virtually gone. The cockpit is gone. The rescue boat is now in place to pick up Leif Borgeson. We have no idea his condition at this point, and we will try to update you as soon as possible. Let's go back and try to get a better idea of what happened. Kenney Toyota Volvo on the right of the screen, behind the rooster tail of the Executone telephones. The right Sponson goes up into the air, and then that huge mass of air under the boat flips it over. They call it a blowover in unlimited hydroplane racing. The boat lands literally on its back and then bounces, landing upright where it came to rest. The driver, Leif Borgeson, 39 years old, making his return to unlimited hydroplane racing after 10 years on the beach, suddenly in the middle of a catastrophe. He surfaced on the left side of the boat, and as we said, we will get an update on his condition as soon as possible. The Syracuse rescue team working professionally and very quickly here on Onondaga Lake, bringing Leif Borgeson back to the dock. Here's Scott Pierce, the driver of the Executone telephones, consoling his wife, Jamie Pierce. You've got to remember, whenever there's an emergency like this, it affects the entire community of unlimited hydroplane racing. They're much like a family. Steve Reynolds, you see, over trying to get word. And the boat itself, the tips of the sponsons ripped away and is sinking. Here's Leif Borgeson being carried to the ambulance. The hospital is very nearby, which makes this race course a very good one. Facilities close by. We understand now that Fred Wright, the crew chief, is going with Leif Borgeson to the hospital. One of the divers, fuel in his eyes. Let's get a word from Fred Wright.
They say just that he's got a bunch of bruises and one broken leg, and other than that, it looks like he's going to be okay.
Have you talked to him?
Yeah, he's
conscious
and everything, right? Yeah.
We will return to more racing here on Onondaga Lake in Syracuse, New York, in just a moment. Welcome back to Syracuse, New York. The brand new Miss Budweiser going out for its first competitive heat. This is the 8th Miss Budweiser for Bernie Little under those beautiful colors. The driver, Todd Yarling, for the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit, will be competing against the Budweiser. Todd out of Madison, Indiana. Andy Coker out of West Palm Beach, Florida, in his second race as an unlimited hydroplane driver. Finished second in Miami last week. Jim Kropfeld in his first race in the new Bud, as we said, the beer wagon making its debut. Let's take a look at what happened in Heat 1B. It was a 3-boat heat. The Miss Budweiser you see here, the American Speedy Printing, and Todd Yarling aboard the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit. But problems for both the American Speedy Printing and the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit, unable to start their engines. As a result, you got it, a 1-boat race. So Jim Kropfeld simply piloted the new Budweiser 5 laps around this 2-mile course and picked up the 400 points, which go along for that national point standings. That also means we shall proceed on to Heat 1A, the restart of this heat after the accident and the Kenney Toyota Volvo. Steve Reynolds, you got some new life now coming into 1A, a rerun.
Yeah, well, you know, I guess it's a break in our favor. We could use one. We just want to put on a good competitive show.
Jerry, you had a great start in 1A, the original start there. Tough break.
Yeah, I would have liked to kept going. I'm going to try and remember how I did that.
Well, let's hope he can. The Executone telephone's on its way for the restart of Heat 1A. We'll return in a moment. Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick back on Onondaga Lake in Syracuse, New York. The restart of Heat 1A. The 7-Eleven with Steve Reynolds. The Oboy Alberto with Jerry Hopp and Scott Pierce, the Executone telephones. Here is the reason for this restart of Heat 1A. Moving at a speed of better than 150 miles per hour, Leif Borgeson in the Kenney Toyota Volvo. A mass of air getting underneath that boat, and it blew over. All the way over, landing on its back, bouncing off the water, and then landing upright. We understand Leif Borgeson, the driver, however, will be all right. Let's look at the drivers of Heat 1A, the restart. First, Jerry Hopp, the man with the outstanding start in the original running of Heat 1A. The Oboy Alberto of beef jerky. Scott Pierce and the victor down in Miami a week ago, Executone telephones. And making it a trio, Steve Reynolds out of Seattle, the Miss 7-Eleven, the turbine-powered unlimited hydroplane. All three boats are now running. The Oboy Alberto beef jerky back one a ways on the inside Executone telephone. Steve Reynolds and the 7-Eleven in lane number 2. Here we go. At the sound of the gun, all the boats are behind the starting line. Good start. Here they come, rumbling into the north turn. On the right of your screen, Executone telephone. Scotty Pierce on the left is Steve Reynolds and the Miss 7-Eleven. Heading down the back chute on this 2-mile course. It was 2.5 last year. Is Scott Pierce in first place ahead of Steve Reynolds and the Miss 7-Eleven. The 7-Eleven behind the rooster tail and trailing somewhat behind Executone telephone. Scott Pierce, of course, the winner in Miami a week ago, hoping to make it a string here in 1985. The skid fin, as you see, throwing water high into the air, trying to hug the buoys as tight as he can, holding on to lane number 1 and trying to extend that lead ahead of Reynolds and the Miss 7-Eleven, who's Scott Pierce and the Executone telephones. Coming down and completing lap number 1. And a wider lead now for Scott Pierce and Executone telephone. Third place to Jerry Hopp in the Oboy Alberto. Coming down now again into that north turn. The only boat on the 1985 circuit at this time anyway with the Merlin engines, the Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, is the Executone telephone. That used to be the staple engine. Everybody used them just a couple of years ago. Now you've got the Griffin engine, the Rolls-Royce Griffin out of the Budweiser, the turbine engines, and very few Merlin engine used these days. Again, the Executone telephone, the boat in its 2nd year. And in the 5th year of sponsorship is Executone Telecommunications. In 2nd place, the 7-Eleven, a brand new sponsor for a boat. They have sponsored races, but now they've got a ride. And the Oboy Alberto, the sponsorship owned by Art Alberto out of Seattle, very colorful, popular man in unlimited hydroplane racing. Nice ride for Scott Pierce. The bigger course here. In Miami, we were on a 1 2/3 course. The speeds weren't as high. Here, the qualifications, as here, Scott Pierce and Executone telephones was much higher, up in the 120s, as was Steve Reynolds' qualifying time for the 7-Eleven. Scott Pierce, first place. 2nd place, the 7-Eleven and Steve Reynolds. You hear the totally different sound of that turbine engine as you watch Executone telephones going by, the crew watching from the finger pier down on the bits. Pierce hoping to pick up another 400 points. He's in 2nd place in the national point standings. Pierce, who worked with the crew throughout the winter getting their Merlin engines ready, one of the guys not afraid to get the grease up to the elbows and simply roll up the sleeves and help out. Right now, he's in his first hot boat ride in his career. He's been in the Unlimiteds for 5 years. Now he's riding in a good ride. Steve Reynolds, 2nd place, and the turbine-powered Miss 7-Eleven. He may be happy to settle for the 300 points and preserve his engines for the final heat. That's where it counts. That's where the money's on the table. As you see the Executone telephone, the blue, light blue and white, beautifully painted boat, built and designed by Jim Lucero, of course, the owner, co-owner of the Mid-American, which had its problems trying to qualify yesterday and will not compete here in Syracuse, but hopefully will in Detroit in a couple of weeks. Who likes what they see as Executone telephones and Scott Pierce moves along in first place here in the restart of Heat 1A. Again, Leif Borgeson, the driver of the Kenney Toyota Volvo, is going to be all right after that blowover in the original running of Heat 1A. He's in the hospital now. There you see Bernie Little and Steve Woomer on the far right. Steve, the owner of that boat, the Miss 7-Eleven. Steve Reynolds driving for Mr. Woomer. The Oh boy, Alberta, one of the older boats using those turbocharged Allison engines from the old P-51 Mustang World War II fighter airplanes. Again, Pierce holding on to first place as he comes down the main chute on a gray day here in Syracuse, New York. Back to second place. Boat's running quite well, as a matter of fact, on this rather choppy water. Doesn't look like it here, but you get out there in lane 1, 2, or 3, and oh my, it can be real bumpy about this time, 3, 4 laps into a heat. Avoy Alberto on the far right, being lapped now by the Executone Telephones, the 711 coming down in the foreground. Keep in mind now, we have 7 boats running. They will take at least 5 or 6 for the final. So if you get any points at all, you're going to be in pretty good shape to get into the final heat here in Onondaga Lake. So Scott Pierce and the Executone Telephones, averaging a little over 105 miles per hour in this heat, will take the checkered flag as he comes down the chute for the last time. Executone Telephones, Scotty Pierce, winner of the restart of 1A. Executone Telephones trying to overtake that national point lead against American Speedy Printing, picks up another 400 points. 300 for Miss 711, and up into the pits with Jim Hendrick.
Well, Don, we'll try to get near the driver right now, and let's see if we can talk to him. He kind of overshot his mark coming in, kind of hot. Danny High talking to him right now as crew chief, getting to be a habit.
Well, every heat we started, we finished, we won, so we like that at Executone. We didn't have to run very hard. The crew did their excellent usual job, and the boat's prepared excellently, and it just doesn't miss a beat. So we're pleased, but we'll be more pleased in the final heat if we're standing here talking to you.
When a heat is delayed, how does that set you up your mental attitude?
Oh, it doesn't bother me much. I feel sorry for Leif, and I'm concerned about him, but I have a job to do, and I'm a professional, so I do it.
Okay, now over by the 7-Eleven, I understand that Don is up there now with Steve Reynolds.
Steve Reynolds, Steve Woomer, owner, driver, respectively. Second place. I have a feeling you're saying I'm taking it easy on this engine right now.
You're looking at the Steve and Steve show. We're just getting ready to show you what we're going to do.
How about you, Wooms?
Yep, the final heat's everything that counts, and that's where we want to be, and we'll be there.
Well, you've done a lot of testing here this morning with your different turbine engines. You've got Lycoming people in here now. Are you getting what you want right now, or what are you trying to do?
Well, the problem is we don't have our test cell here. Back home, we have a dyno. We're using the boat as a dyno. First time we've run this motor, and so every time we go out, we're making adjustments and changes.
And so far, the boats and the crowd has been lucky. A little gusty, but no rain yet. Back with a high performance.
This is the Unlimited Hydroplane High Performance Corner. A closer look at the fastest race boats in the world.
Jim, give me a quick tour of some of the most significant safety features on this cockpit.
Well, in the enclosed cockpit, Don, we have to have a lot of things to be able to get out of here, and also a lot of safety items to help us along. And one of the main things I have is an oxygen rebreather. I rebreathe my own air, but it's replenished with the 20% of your oxygen. We have naturally fire systems that floods the cockpit and the engine compartment in case of fire. That's manually operated by myself.
Got the hatch down below?
We have, well, on the bottom here, in case the boat is upside down in the water, I can open this from the inside, or it can be opened from the outside by the safety team.
But how do you open the canopy?
Well, the canopy, I have a release lever right here on my left that I pull. The canopy will go up, and it's also can be opened from the outside, which in case of something would happen, I think that the safety team can do that.